giving her things to do because she's great.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Catie Harris, the CEO and owner of Nursepreneurs, and I'm here with...
Hi, I'm Jill Weberding. I'm CEO and founder of Nurse Assure.
Yep, and we were just kind of talking backstage about team building and providing work for your team members and stuff. And I have one team member, Jill, that's absolutely amazing. I adore her, and I keep piling more and more work on her as like a thank you. So finally I told her, I'm like, you need to like find other people on the team to help you, so you start delegating. So I think I've inadvertently made her a manager.
Yeah.
I guess I should increase her pay.
But that's actually good. It's good timing because it rolls right into the topic for today, which is it's not just you have this issue of when is the time? Like, do I need a mentor? Should I get a mentor? Is it worth the investment? When do I make that jump of going all in the business? And it's not just initially, you'll have the same kind of quandary when you try to scale and when you expand, because then it's like, at what point do I start hiring a team and, all those things. So timely discussion.
Absolutely. I agree. So what is the answer? When do we start? When do I hire a mentor? Like, I'm always looking for a mentor. I'm like constantly looking for when can you have too many mentors, which is the other kind of like problem.
Yeah. But I think probably the bigger question for a lot of people starting out is, do I really need one? Right. And we see this question in the group, in the big Nursepreneurs group, that they'll ask, like, how many of you actually have a mentor? Because first, there's like some inner game issues of admitting that and accepting help, right? That you want and need help. That's one issue to get off, to get past initially, especially if you're used to being the go-to person. Clinically, a lot of us are really clinically strong. And so we're used to and identify with being the go-to person who has all the answers. But when you take the transition into business, for most of us, that's a whole new world, right? And so there's a lot of things that you don't know and you need to figure out. And so the question is, can you do that on your own? And what is the cost of that time-wise, typically, to learn all those things on your own, how to get, do all those logistic things to keep your business moving forward, and versus what is the investment of, finding a mentor, partnering with a mentor to help kind of accelerate that track.
Yeah, and I've seen it kind of both ways, because some people say, well, you should try and get some traction in your business before you hire a mentor. And, maybe, just to see if it's going to work out. I hired a mentor early on. That was what I spent a lot of my money on, just because I've had this track record in the past of starting something and going nowhere with it, right? So I would hit a roadblock and be like, oh, it doesn't work, blah, blah. Then I've done that enough times that when I actually did start Nursepreneurs my brother was like, oh, I wonder how long this will last. And that was like the comment that set me over the edge. And I was like, you jerk. I went out and hired a business mentor, and lo and behold, this is the one business that actually, grabbed. Yeah, that stuck. So is that a coincidence? Was it, dumb luck, or was getting the mentor early on and spending the money like to help me develop the idea the key point here?
Yeah, I would say one, it might be different for different people, but knowing that and recognizing that you had a pattern of, I've got these great ideas, but I never know exactly how to bring them to fruition. And so when it gets hard, I basically get out, right? So that's a pattern, right? And there's a lot of inner game in there. But those patterns that you see in your habits and in your behavior, if that sounds like you, then you likely need a mentor early on to help you get through those hard parts so you keep pushing. Right. And it might just be that you literally get stuck on the skills or the logistics. But for someone who's been down the path, they can show you that it's, with, these few steps, it might not be near the mountain that you're making it, that you think you have to overcome, that's keeping you stuck where you are or causing you to want to give up. Right. So that's the benefit of having a mentor early. Also, if you're just really not sure of which way to go, right? It's hard to get traction when your idea is pretty nebulous, when you're like, I mean, and we've seen people who even like come to us or do a consult, like a discovery call with us, and I have one that had a whole course built, and she couldn't tell me who her audience was. And I'm like, well, that would be why you aren't selling any courses, right? You don't even know who you're speaking to. So they couldn't possibly know that you have a solution for them. So again, in those situations, sometimes creating, it all in the front end, you end up wasting more time and money, hours, creating something that you really are missing the mark on. So mentors early on can really help with that as well.
Right. I mean, because I can say, like, honestly, I had, it wasn't I wouldn't call it a concierge nurse business because it wasn't, that term didn't really exist back in 2013, but that's exactly what I had put together. And then I was just like, no, this isn't going to work. And, I had let it go. And then I did the same exact thing with IV hydration. I even went so far as to buy 10,000 brochures that I was going to go stick out on cars and let people know. And then I was like, nobody's going to want this. And of course, like, that's like the hottest thing. Can you imagine if both of those ideas were,
you would own the market right now.
Right, I know, crazy. So, but anyway, so that kind of stuff. But that's where that comment came from my brother, was like, oh, how much money are you going to spend, and how much time before you give up? And it's, if I had somebody back then saying, no, you're on the right track. And the other part to that is just kind of like talking it out, like saying, okay, this is what I've done, this is what I need to do. Sometimes that you just need to say the words aloud. And Jill, we've had this a couple of times where I'll say something and you're like, did you just hear yourself? That was the dumbest thing you could have possibly said.
I never say that last part. I just say, I prompt you do you hear it when you say it out loud, Catie? Like, and the answer is usually yes, and it's almost always stemming around a limiting belief or, something like that. And you're like, your answer is right there. But it really can help to have someone who, catches it, because when you're literally in the trenches, it can be very hard to see what's beyond right in front of your face. And so whether that's a group, course or a coaching program, or, a mentor who can see, they're coming from a different perspective, and they're like, well, you're staring at your answer. You literally know it. It's right here, right?
Yeah. And like I said, just saying the things out loud to hear it, because that you can really stew in that for a long time, and your mind can start convincing you of all these crazy things that then become truth, that just, if somebody could just like knock them out and just go, all right, we're done with that. We had our pity party. Let's move on.
Yes. I call that sad sack Sally.
You and your alliteration.
And some of my any nurses who have worked with me in courses, like, eventually I'm going to call her out. I call out sad sack Sally, where you're like, you're going down that, and it's the reptilian brain that does this, right? You get into this fear of failure, or this doubt, inner critic, imposter syndrome, and then your brain, the reptilian brain, actually searches for evidence to show you proof that you're correct. And so you focus on the negative, you focus on the what ifs, you focus on the setbacks and all the things as evidence of, this isn't a good idea, this isn't really going to pan out, I shouldn't keep pushing. And, really you need someone to interrupt that pattern and say, but that's all BS, right? Like, that's just fear talking, trying to keep you in your comfort zone so you don't, step out and actually, step into what the potential is here, the opportunity.
Right. And, I saw somebody one time do this. So when they were counseling people that had this kind of negative perspective, like their son didn't come home, so they were like, oh, I'm afraid he was like burning in a car off the cliff and fell off a bridge, or blah blah, like this horrible situation. And you really start to like buy into it and start panicking and this kind of stuff. And he's like, all right, let's do the opposite. Let's say your son won $100 million and they whisked him off to Hawaii to present this check to him, and that's why he hasn't come home. And you're like, well, that's ridiculous.
Right.
And he's like, well, so is yours. Your situation's ridiculous too.
Percentages are about the same.
Yeah,
right?
The percentages are about the same, that this happened or that happened. But that's what happens when we're by ourselves and we start going down these certain paths, and it's hard to stop, because, like you said, the reptilian brain just keeps giving you more and more evidence of what it is that you want to believe. So you have the option to believe the opposite, that he's in Hawaii now, like with this $100 million and he's about to call you and send you your first class ticket. So, how could you turn that around for your own business? And
Yep.
when you're looking, instead of saying, well, this isn't going to work, said, how can we look at this and say it is going to work, or what is it that we have to do to work around it?
Right, right. And so, like, if that still seems really far-fetched to you, you're like, yeah, but I know that scenario, the Hawaii scenario, isn't real. So then you digress back to the worst case scenario, you can say, or that he's just having a really great time with his friends and he just lost track of time. Like, that's highly plausible, right? I mean, so there's lots of ways to kind of turn that on its head, and that is the trick. It's the pattern interrupt that you do to get you out of that habit of negative, thinking, worst case scenario, fear of failure, inner critic, all those things. Yeah. So, like, what would you say to someone who maybe they've been trying, like, when is the point to jump? What do you tell them? So if they didn't do it initially, when do you feel like, at what part in the business is it time to jump to mentorship? We get this question a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so everything's going to be either time or money, right? So
Yep.
either how much time do you have to investigate on by yourself, like how to figure something like this out, versus how much money do you have to spend on something like this? And sometimes the money's just not there, and there's a lot of stuff that we have to do on our own to get something like this moving. And it's going to take you longer. That's just
Yep. Fact.
the nature of the beast. It's just the nature of the beast. But if you have the money, it would be well spent, I think, from the get-go to get a mentor, just to keep you in line. Because, and I've told you this, and I've made a video on this, it's on YouTube, about the first $15,000 that I spent, just trying to figure it out. Where, can you imagine, like, I could have had like Perry Marshall mentoring me one-on-one for $15,000. Like, that would have been a way better investment than the stupid things that I spent money on. So but I was like dabbling around. I wasn't sure, what do I really want to do this? And you spend it little by little, so it doesn't feel as
painful,
or it doesn't feel like such a big investment. Like, I didn't jump both feet in the water, but I actually did, spent way more dabbling and pretending like, I'm going to start a business than if I had just said, this is what I want. Yeah, this is what I want. And if you can say what it is that you want out loud, those opportunities will come to you.
Yeah. And give yourself permission to go get it. Right. So I talk about trade-offs a lot with the nurses that I work with, particularly like when we're wrapping up, courses, or we're getting ready to pitch. We talked about this before Pitch Fest too. And the question is, and I think this might trigger when you jump into mentorship, it's when you decide that you're going to do this. Right. It's a difference between, in the beginning, I think a lot of times we try to keep one foot in this ring and one foot in this ring, right? For the comfort of, if this doesn't work out, I still have this over here. So you never actually get all in, right? You never actually go all in and give it everything you have and really, behave like failure is not an option. Like, of course I'm going to succeed in this because I succeed in everything, that I really set my mind to and put time and energy and, work into, then this will be no different, but I have to figure it out. And it's really hard to do it part-time. It takes tremendously longer. And I learned this myself, painful lesson. I wasted, truly, if I was honest, I would say I wasted years before I went all in and said, this is it. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm doing this. I will figure it out. And how do I get there quickest? And for me, I kind of, I stalked you for like a year, just trying to figure out, trying to get the pieces, and you give a ton of value for free of tips. And I would try to use those, but I still didn't have the whole picture. Like, I still couldn't see the vision of how to make it all come together. So, multiple years ago, like, that's what it was for me. I had to decide that, okay, I'm going to stop playing around. Like, I've wasted, 2 years already before I got a mentor, where I could have been 2 years into my business being successful, just because I was trying to figure it out. Right. And I was basically was playing small. I was staying in my comfort zone, trying to figure it out on my own. And I was just holding myself back. So when you recognize that you're holding yourself back because you literally don't know, and you can go and survey all the YouTube videos and all the free lead magnets of the, tip sheets on PDF, it's not going to shift you. When you realize that you're doing all those things and you're still not making progress, the progress at the pace that you want, the question becomes, what is the cost of me not getting a mentor right now, of not moving my business forward? Who am I not helping right now who's struggling when I have the skill set, if I just knew how to put it together and offer it to them and help them, right? So I wasted, and now I feel bad because not only did I waste a whole lot of time and energy of my own, like trying to figure this out. Like, I'm a smart girl, I can figure this out. How many times do we, tell ourselves that? I should be able to figure this out. I know the need is there, but I just needed someone to help me like see how to package it and, talk about the messaging and how do I learn what I need to know from the audience that I'm going to serve. I had to get someone to help me put it together, and then I could run, right? But I wasted all this time and money, ding here, ding there, just like you talked about, playing small, playing safe in my mind. And I would have spent a whole lot less time and money if I had just said, I'm in. And so it's long-term vision. This is not, you don't start a business for short term, like wrong. I mean, it's not that kind of a path. So if you're in it, you decide you're in it for the long term. Like, why would you hold back and intentionally get success slower?
So and I would say too, like, your mentor or your coach is also not a magician. So you're not going to get a mentor coach and then the business spits out of you like a day later or something. So it's more of a relationship where you can talk things out. You have the guidance, you have that security, and knowing somebody is like going down this path with you. But the mentor, like, I didn't give you a business, Jill. Your business came from you. And, we gave you a space to formulate that and some structure, but everything came from you. And you take credit for everything that you've done. I don't take credit for any of what my students do, because it came from them. And as mentor coach, it's just about giving space. So I think sometimes we get into a mentorship and you're like, well, you didn't do anything for me.
Where's the result, right? Agree to that. Like, I see it more as a facilitator, as someone, a guide and a facilitator who could help you see what you can't see right now, right? And so if that person is experienced and has worked with, in our realm, has worked with other nursepreneurs and has worked with enough nurses to say, oh yeah, like, and they can even, give you some examples of experience and say, I recognize this. I worked with another nurse who had the same issue, and this is how so not only can they give you their experience, they can give you the experience of the other clients, other people that they have helped. But I would agree, there's no easy button. Even when you get a mentor, you still have to show up and do the work. And so like when we do, teaching programs and courses and all those things, mentoring or one-on-one coaching, it's all the same. Like, I guarantee that I will give you what you need to be able to bring this to fruition, but I can't do it for you, right? I can't do the work for you because then it would be my business, right? So you still have to show up and do the work. And that's why I think, are really heavy on incorporating so much inner game into everything we do, because it's usually the inner game that stops you from actually taking the action and doing the work.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the other piece of that too is one of the reasons you go to a mentor or coach is because of the people that they know. And that's one of the things that we've been offering recently, is just putting our nurses in front of large audiences and letting them pitch their ideas and get that practice. And I think that's a huge part of what we offer that nobody else does. So to me, information by itself is not worth
valuable to a degree.
Right,
right?
right. It's valuable to a degree. It's nice to have it nicely structured and stuff, but I mean, how much is it really worth on its own? Because, like you mentioned before, there's YouTube videos. You can go out and watch a gazillion YouTube videos and get all the information that you need, but it's not bouncing ideas off of somebody. It's not bouncing, getting their knowledge and experience for the last 20 years of doing this. It's not meeting the people that they meet, because that's what you're really paying for when you're looking at a mentor or a coach. They can introduce you to the right people, or say, I know somebody who knows somebody who can help you.
Yeah.
And I've had that experience with Rosalind in our group, who does PICOs. She wanted some nurses or some women that she could interview, and I was like, well, my list isn't a PICOs list, but I'll put an email out there for you and see if any of the nurses know somebody who has PICOs that you could do an interview with. And she got, like, from that one email, she got like 12 people to interview. And then also one of the persons on my list that wasn't a nurse, but was my Facebook manager, she saw that email and she's like, well, I happen to be like
Yeah,
um,
that's me.
the director of the PICO Society for Canada. And she's like, I would love to talk to her. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that you want to have access to.
Yeah. And then also recognizing that, like, so some people would say, oh, big deal, you got 12 names. All, like, that's a gold mine, because if you have those right conversations with those 12 people, they will actually give you all of it, right? They tell you on an intimate level, like, what the actual struggle is that they're dealing with. And so then you can take that information and say, I get it. Okay. I'm in the trenches with them now. I understand it in a much better way. And so I can craft a much better solution, right? And I can message and connect in a much deeper level that most are just on the surface of, hey, here's a program. If you suffer with blah, 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 join this program. No connection, right? It's
Right.
very different than being able to speak the words, back to them so that they really resonate and they know that you get it, that you're not afraid to climb into the struggle with them. Or maybe you've been there yourself. And so, you can really speak to that. So I would agree that there's a lot of, there's no shortage of gurus and mentors and coaches and all those things. So if you decide that you are going to take that leap, then it's really about finding the right one that's a match for you, like you talked about. So what is it beyond this 12 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it is that you're buying, with them? What do you get beyond that? And so that's really, I think, what I insanely love about Nursepreneurs is the network and the community that we create. And some of the students are like, I'm glad to be part of the family, right? And so it really isn't just a transaction. It's not done after 6, 8, 12 weeks, whatever you're, joined with us. Like, now we've built a relationship and we understand you better. We know, like, and trust you. Then we can certainly connect you and think of you for opportunities. And so that's really powerful. So the question would be is, if you're looking for mentors, like, is it a personality? Is it a good fit? Because everybody's style is different, I rub a lot of people the wrong way when I am not afraid to call them out on things. They don't want to be called out, right? So, I may not be the best fit for everybody, but other people, I'm exactly what they want and need. And so I'm fine with, polarizing, like, right? And so are you. Like, you are who you are, and you'll be a magnet for the people who resonate with you. And then you can run with them, and there'll be another coach or mentor who resonates with this group over here. And that's all good too. Like, there's enough pie out there, friends. You don't have to, we're not all stealing pieces of the pie. Everybody is going to, magnet and resonate with someone different. And so that's really important that you do a discovery call, that you, check them out. Does their voice resonate with you? Do you have a connection? Because if you're going to make the investment, you want to know that you've got the right match, that you have the right person to take you to that next level.
Right. And plus, the other thing that I would do, and I have done, or I always do, to be honest, is when I want to know that the person has done what it is that I want to do, right? So
Yeah.
have they been there? They've done that. Would they have the connections and the type of people that I want to be associated with? And 3 is I always kind of go through their testimonials and stuff, because I think people put up these random stuff and it's just kind of like, one, it's not believable, or two, like there was this one lady who was outrageously expensive, and I was looking up her testimonials. Either the links are broken, or the
Mm.
testimonials went to like pages that didn't look good. It was a little suspicious, and it gave me that sense of like, I don't want to be involved in, I don't know what's going on
Yeah.
here. Like, I don't fully trust it. So, you have to like, and people like Perry Marshall, who I talk about a lot because I like the guy so much, and I really respect him. But when you look at his testimonials, like the names, you're just like, I can't believe all these people are associated with Perry. Like, that's amazing.
It
So,
tells you something, right, about the
right.
caliber right there.
Right. One, that they're real testimonials. Two, that, do I even like the people that he works with? Because the people that he attracts would be the people that I would be working with, right?
Yes.
So, like, do I like these testimonials? Do I like the people in the testimonials? I think
Yeah.
that's a really important thing to look at. And
Yeah.
does your mentor or coach have any testimonials? Like, maybe they don't have anything that they can show you, and you're just kind of like, if you can't talk to like a couple of their students and find out kind of the real deal, I would run.
Yeah. I mean, because it is an investment, right? So you want to, just like anything else, you want to make your investment, you want to choose wisely. And again, like when I do discovery calls, I prefer, quite frankly, for them to be on Zoom, because I want to be able to see you and you see me, because I want to know from both of our perspectives, is it a good fit? Like if we're going to coach, if I'm going to be coaching you over the next 12 weeks, one-on-one, like we want to make sure that it's a good fit, right? I don't want to waste your time or my time and find out in week 2 that you're like, I'm just not on board with what you're doing or how you work or what your style is, and how you deliver, whether it's content or coaching or whatever it is. So you really want to do your homework and do some research before you choose someone or a program, whatever that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and to that end, I would say that just because somebody's more expensive doesn't mean they're better. And at the same time, just because they're lower, they might they might need Jill's InnerGame to up their prices a bit. It might be a steal of a deal. So you just have to really, you have to trust the social proof at some
Yeah.
level. Find out more about them and their background, which is why we always encourage our nurses to put stuff about themselves. How do we get in touch with you? How do we learn more? How do we do a call with you? That kind of stuff, because you have to build that credibility.
Yeah, they're not just they're certainly not just buying your solution or your service, what you're doing. They're buying you. They're buying into you. And so if we don't know who that is, that trust factor is really slow to develop. So do your research, and then, again, like the question is always, well, do I have enough money? Should I start buying a team, paying a team? Like at what point? Usually the question is, what is it costing you to not do that, to not take that step? What is it costing you to not hire a VA when you are actually X amount per hour? Is that the task that you're doing right now? Is that a $100 an hour task? Is it a $200 an hour task? If it's not, then you're actually losing money by not having a VA. So I could say the same thing for the mentorship. What's it costing you if you've spent, like I did, 2 years? Holy moly! Like if you calculate the revenue that I could have been making, and the people I could have been serving in those 2 years, had I just took the leap and went all into the circle and said, okay, I'm committed. I'm going to do it. Let's do it, and let's get it together and get rocking. That's it. That was a huge loss on my part, but you got to be here and be ready to commit and do the work.
Right. Absolutely. All right, Jill, we seem to be at the top of the half hour here.
Yep.
So I think this is a really good discussion. And, just to kind of recap, I would say, when are you ready? When is it time for a mentor? And I would just say, when you know what you want and you're ready to move forward, that's the time for the mentor. And I would strongly encourage you to talk to students of whoever you're looking at working with, and just make sure that they've done what it is that you want to do to move forward.
Absolutely. Do your research so that it's a good match, not just what their program is, but who they are as a person and personality, so that you can get everything that you want and need out of that out of that connection, out of that relationship. But you do have to show up.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you next week.